So this content creator's been going through some hate about his take on the Wuthering Waves closed beta test, and I think it's unjustified. So this content creator, EOverse or EO, he makes videos on gacha games like Honkai Star Rail and now Wuthering Waves. And he recently made a tweet about the Wuthering Waves beta and what he didn't like about it and why he's potentially dropping it. So let's go over his tweet and talk about why some people are disagreeing with his take and why I think this is a base take, in my opinion. So to start, he starts with saying Yinlin released in Wuthering Waves, and I honestly feel like I might be done with the beta, at least from a content/sync hours into it perspective. Wuwa has a lot of potential, but one thing I'm not putting myself through again is grinding the beta for weeks just to attempt playing the characters I want under the will of RNG. Now this is the main idea of this whole tweet, and it's been a gripe that a lot of people have been having with the Wuthering Waves beta. You know, a beta is supposed to be an opportunity to test everything about the game, right, before it releases, especially since it's a closed beta. I expected that players in the closed beta test would get every single character, would be able to play test every single character, but it seems it's not the case. You know, like, they still have their gacha system in there, and you still have to wish for the characters that you want to test, which makes no sense considering it's a closed beta test where your progress gets wiped at the end anyway, right? So if you want to play test Yinlin, for example, you're gonna have to go through the 50-50, and then if you miss a 50-50, you're gonna have to grind enough playtime, enough missions, enough quests to get enough currency to go for the 50-50 again, or just get lucky, like he says, under the will of RNG. Which is, I think it's completely unreasonable for a closed beta test to do that, because you're supposed to be able to test the characters, right? How do you test the characters when you're not even sure you're gonna get them? Like, you know? And what's the point of playing the game when the content gets wiped anyway? You know, there's no progress being made anyway. So a lot of creators, like I know M-Tash talk about this, like he didn't want to get burnt out of the game. He likes the game, he likes Wuthering Waves, but he doesn't want to get burnt out from it by grinding and grinding and grinding to the point where he's done with it, you know, before the game even officially releases, right? So I think this is the main idea of the tweet, and I do agree that this is a good reason for wanting to drop the game, honestly. Like, if I were in the beta, I would have similar thoughts, because, you know, like, if I miss a 50-50 and I get a character I don't want, like, I'm quitting, bro. Straight up. Okay, maybe I'm not quitting, but I'll play it less, you know? So let's continue on with the tweet here. He says, it's difficult to give this game time when there feels like the only thing to do is grind, and that becomes less exciting when the characters you want are easily/immediately acceptable. China does the gacha system correctly, but Global's way of doing it is ass. There's zero reason to be testing the gacha system without giving an abundance of premium resources to the player. So now this is kind of controversial, right? I think there is value in testing the gacha system as it is, testing how much resources you get, how much currency you get, to see if it's a good amount. The gripe I do have is that people just can't get every character. They can't get the characters that they want to test. They just can't get characters unless they get lucky, right? The characters that they want, at least. And I don't think there's zero reason to be testing the gacha system without giving an abundance of premium resources to the player, because you should be able to test how much premium resources you're giving out as a developer to make sure, you know, like, if you want it to be free to play friendly, if it's free to play friendly. If you don't want it to be free to play friendly, then, you know, you can test that too. So I think that's good for at the end at a different closed beta test. I think this is the second closed beta test, right? And it's one where they made a lot of improvement since the previous one. So I think in this version they should, and since they shouldn't be prioritizing testing the gacha system. Instead, they should be testing the characters, how the characters interact, having the playtesters test the characters in the environment, test the characters against bosses, all that. And the gacha system should not be a priority. So while I disagree with this take, I do see why he says this. And I don't know how China does the gacha system, but apparently it's better. So let's continue. Especially when, again, the game feels arduous in between impactful moments. A handful of larger creators I know completely dropped the beta because they received characters that they were completely uninterested in. This is what I just said. Like, if I got a character that I don't like Encore, bro, I don't want to fucking play Encore. You know, I don't want that character, bro. Let me get Yinlin, let me get Jian, let me get Chalkaro. You know, like, I don't want Encore, man. I don't want to play that character. So I completely understand why. I understand why they dropped the game. I wouldn't drop the game. I just play the game less. I'd be less excited to play the game. But yeah, let's continue. Another group of players, not creators, dropped the game because they lost a 50-50 near pity, and I myself will admittedly lose interest in playing the game if I lose 50-50 on Yinlin. Like I said, I completely get that. The problem here is I don't want to grind for 30 plus more pulls when the premium currency given is 20 to 100 per quest. So if I remember correctly, it takes 120 premium currency to summon. So if you're only getting 20 to 100 per quest, that's a lot of quests. If you wanna get 30 pulls, you know, that's a lot of quests. So I mean, I do get it. I still think you should play the game to test the story but I think it would have been better if you could test the story with the characters that you wanted to, since it's a fucking closed beta test. Like, they should just give you that anyway. Let's continue. I just finished the main story, and now companion quests are locked out for another 5 levels, which means I have to grind. Apparently, I won't experience the real Wuwa until level 2730. That's an incredibly stupid amount of time to sink into a beta whose progress is going to get wiped. So, I mean, I honestly think this is fine. Like, you're supposed to be testing the game anyway, right? And that means testing the progression, testing the end game, testing how you get to end game, testing the gearing system, all that, right? And yes, you're gonna have to grind for closed beta tests. Like, you're gonna have to grind regardless. Like, and they won't just speed run you to end game, you know? They want to test the progress of the game, right? The pace of the game. They want to test that too. So they can't just speed run you to end game. Maybe they could have reduced the levels that you needed for companion quests, but I don't think this is a valid complaint, because you're there to test a game. You're a closed beta tester. You're there to test a game. I think the main gripe that I had was with the characters, right? If you had the characters you wanted to play, if you had access to all the characters, right, I feel like grinding for another 5 levels wouldn't be that boring. You know, they have a lot of characters to build, you got a lot of players, a lot of teams to try out, you know. So if you had access to all the characters, that will fix this problem, honestly. So that's with this ending statement. He says, overall, I enjoy Wuwa a lot, with very few things I'd change about it, but those few things are so important to any one player's experience that it could genuinely make or break them sticking to the game medium to long term. So I think this is overall it's a pretty good take. Like, I do disagree with some parts, and I don't think people should be attacking EO for tweeting this. It's a very valid argument. If you're testing a game, you should be able to have access to all the characters, you know, especially since progress is getting wiped anyway. Like, why gatekeep characters? Why make it so that your testers cannot play test the characters? It's a closed beta test. That's like going into, like, let's say you play Valorant, right? And Valorant has a beta. Like, imagine you go into Valorant beta and you can't use the Vandal or Phantom. Like, that's the 2 main weapons. You can't use those weapons. You just can't. Like, hello? That's half the fucking game. The characters are more than half the game. And so the testers should be able to have access to those characters. And as I mentioned previously, like, this issue, it is an issue that I can see why people do not like this, that you have to grind another 5 levels and wait and grind to experience the, you know, quote unquote real Wuwa. But I think if you were to introduce all the characters to the testers, this would not be an issue, because there'd be just so much stuff to do, you know? There'd be so much stuff to do. So that's my take on EO's tweet. Apparently he says people have been attacking him and subtweeting him about this take, and they need to get a life, or he needs to beat your ass in real life. And that's true, you know? Like, you shouldn't be subtweeting. This is a base take, bro. It's a base take. And a lot of content creators agree with this, because I know M-Test drops every game he plays, but he dropped Wuthering Waves because he didn't want to get burnt out. And I think a lot of other content creators have been slowly kind of phasing out of Wuthering Waves because of the same reason. And they're not getting the experience they want. They're not getting the characters they want. And they're gatekept by this progression system. Like, they don't even give you enough currency to summon every character, you know? So yeah, that's overall my take on EO's tweet. Let me know what you guys think. And yeah, I'll see you on the next one. Peace.